This time in episode 349 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discuss Luke Cage, Season 2, Episode 7, On and On, and Season 2, Episode 8, If It Ain't Rough, It Ain't Right.
I'm Andrew from the Dad.io podcast. Life supplies the inputs, and we supply the outputs. Part of the GonnaGeek network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other fantastic and amazing geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You have been granted clearance by Director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Haley.
I'm Agent Michelle.
And I'm producer of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., SP. Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. The show is recorded on Thursday, September 10th, 2020, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast Harlem-wide via www.geeks.live. Come and join our live chat as we record. Ladies, happy National TV Dinner Day.
Yum.
I've had a few of those.
Do we still call them TV dinners, or can we just call them frozen dinners? Because, you know, you got the healthy choice stuff, and you got the Marie
in
Calendar.
General, people call it frozen dinners now. I don't know that I've heard TV dinner anywhere except for this one bar that used to do TV dinner Tuesdays. R.I.P. Angel's Trumpet.
Back in the day, before microwave dinners, they sold these aluminum tray dinners that you would put in the oven for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes or so, to heat them up, and then you would eat that. And that was called a TV dinner. It was before microwaves.
And they were in those trays, so you could actually put them in front of you and you could eat dinner while you watch TV. Because back in the day, youngins, the TV was like huge. It was like a huge thing, but with a teeny screen. It was very interesting.
We had one of those.
Yeah, with tubes, and there were actually tubes. The internet's not tubes, but the first TVs and such, there were like tubes. And
we had one in like the big wooden console. Yep.
I had one of those, and then we put it, I tried to sell it. Nobody would buy it. Then I put it out for the trash, and then somebody took it within minutes. There you go. Anyway, if you want to get that experience, I guess maybe get a pot pie that you throw in the oven versus the microwave and do it that way. I guess that's the closest you can get nowadays.
If you want to wait that long for your dinner to cook, crazy talk.
Some people say it tastes better.
It does taste better.
All right. So with that, we'll get on with the rest of the show. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the Marvel Cinematic and comic book universes in general.
because of plastic-covered furniture.
If you'd like to talk to us about your plastic-covered furniture, you can visit our website, legendsofshield.com.
If you have a story about how your grandmother had plastic-covered furniture, you can leave us a voicemail at 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
You can share pictures of your grandmother's plastic-covered furniture to our Facebook page, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
You can find us on Twitter at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You can find our video companions on YouTube at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
You can tell your Amazon device to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
You can join our Discord server at GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
Agent Lauren wanted to be here with us tonight, but she just couldn't, so we're expecting her back next week or so. So I know a lot of everybody sent well wishes her way, and she is still progressing and will be here again in the future. And also, before we get on with the rest of the show, I just want to send a shout out to the showrunner of Luke Cage, Cheo Hodari Cokcer, who actually has still been communicating back and forth with us. And actually, guess what? He picked up on the SP is wrong meme, and he told me I was wrong about how Misty's relationship with the cop at the restaurant, how that was actually season 1. And it made me feel really bad that I hadn't seen season 1 in a while. So
Wasn't he like the psychiatrist or something? The department psychiatrist?
exactly. If you were here, you would have saved us from Cheo's wrath. But
I'm glad he got to tell you you're wrong. You've heard it from us so many times. I don't know if you believe it anymore.
So thank you very much, Cheo, for that correction. We really appreciate it. From season 1, he was a psychiatrist and Misty was still talking to him. So that was the connection there. And Cheo, thank you again for honoring us by listening to us talk about your amazing show. Which, speaking of, we got 2 more episodes of Luke Cage to talk about. You ladies ready to get into it?
I am.
Yep.
All right, here we go. We're going to talk about Luke Cage Season 2, Episode 7, On and On, and Luke Cage Season 2, Episode 8, If It Ain't Rough, It Ain't Right. We have the creative team behind both episodes. By the way, they were published to Netflix on June 22nd, 2018 by the rest of just like the rest of Season 2. Haley, why don't you go down the creative team for the first episode, On and On?
On and On was directed by Rashaad Ernesto Green. He has 19 directing credits starting in 2007. Those credits include 1 episode of Grimm, 2 of Supernatural, 1 of The Vampire Diaries, 4 Being Mary Jane, 1 of Luke Cage, 1 Proven Innocent, 1 Looking for Alaska, and 1 The Chi. Or The Chi. The Chi, I think. And the episode was written by Nicole Mirante-Matthews. She has 8 writing credits starting in 2001. They include 3 episodes of Any Day Now, 2 of The Huff, 1 of The Nine, 1 of Kana, 2 of Law & Order Criminal Intent, 8 of NCIS, 2 of Luke Cage, and 2 of The Walking Dead.
Walking Dead, the universe that is still persisting.
It's the last season, though, I think I heard.
Yes.
Michelle, you dug up some interesting news on that this week.
Season 11 is going to be it, but they're going to spin it off for a Daryl and Carol show.
Yes, I also read that. I haven't watched the show in a while.
I haven't either. I think, what was the train station that they went in and out of? Like, I don't know, season
Terminal.
3, 4? Terminal? When was that?
Terminus.
Right.
Yeah, Terminus. 3 or 4?
No, that was way after that. I think it was like 5 or 6.
Okay. So I lasted that long and then I was out. Anyway, Michelle, why don't you go down the creative team of the second episode we're going to talk about today? If it ain't rough, it ain't right.
This episode was directed by Neema. Barnette, has 47 directing credits starting in 1984, including 1 Hooperman, 3 It's a Living, 1 China Beach, 7 A Different World, 2 episodes of Diagnosis Murder, 2 Queen Sugar, 4 Being Mary Jane, 1 Blind Spot, 1 Luke Cage, 1 Midnight Texas, 1 Jane the Virgin, 1 Black Lightning, and 2 Paradise Lost. This episode was written by Nathan Lewis Jackson, has 3 writing credits and starting in 2014, including 3 Resurrections, 1 episode of 13 Reasons Why, and 2 Luke Cage.
And Luke Cage had the showrunner, Cheo Hodari Cokcer, for the entirety of the run. Still today, we will call him the showrunner since, he's still talking to us. Thank you again, Cheo. So we talk about the themes of the episode in relation to the titles of the episode. I keep on saying that every week, and every week it's true. And Haley is our master of being able to craft the themes from the titles. So Haley, take it away. On and On. What is the theme of the episode?
So I have the issue today of I watched several episodes in a row. So I don't remember what the lines are between the episodes. So I can't do it.
So basically what you're saying is Netflix kept on going on, and you kept on watching and watching.
Yeah. But this time I did stop with the last episode I was supposed to watch. So I at least have that going for me.
Well, that's cool. Michelle, do you want to save our co-host?
The issues just keep going on and on. Vengeance keeps going on and on. Wrath keeps going on and on. It's like just this weird cycle that just keeps going and repeating and such.
You know what else keeps on going on and on? The amazing dialogue in the scenes, these one-on-one scenes that are happening throughout the series, especially these 2 episodes. That is going on. I will give the production team every ounce of credit for that. It was great 2 episodes, in my opinion. Anyway, if it ain't rough, it ain't right. Michelle, you want to take that one on too?
Well, if life ain't rough, that it's not worth it. If Shades doesn't, rough up Mariah a little bit, it's just not right. I think it has something to do with that. It's just like if life isn't giving you a heartache or trouble, then life's just not right.
All right, I think a little bit of it is like Luke Cage. It's how he works, right? You got to be Luke Cage, got to be a little rough about it, and that's what makes this whole series right, is Luke Cage.
Luke Cage was not the star of these 2 episodes.
You don't say. You mean Luke Cage has a supporting cast that outdoes him from time to time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, he might think it's his show, but it's not. It's not just his show.
Haley, we have to backtrack a little bit because there was something that happened in episode 5 that you were all gunning to talk about, and you couldn't be here last week.
Yeah.
And it had to do with a certain money-making opportunity for Luke Cage. So do you want to go into, since we're talking about Luke Cage specifically, you want to go into that and what your take on the personal appearance was?
Yeah, well, his comic book was Hero for Hire, and he's slowly transitioning to that role. He's getting paid for just being kind of a celebrity hero, but like it's transforming into him taking on clients and, getting paid.
We had a little bit of that of Trish/Patsy in Jessica Jones season 2 too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's talk about where we start, because it was the cowboy face-off, high bridge, high noon sort of thing. Luke gets sucker punched by earth elements, and he ends up frozen and getting pushed into the river. But he comes to, he wakes up in order to save himself. Is this believable?
Yeah, because his name's on the show. They can't have him drown.
It's the fall of the hero and coming back to life, getting baptized again.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the second episode, there's a baptismal happening, but in a way, when Luke comes out of the water, he sees his mom. He goes to his dad, and that relationship starts its own working out, its own journey. So of course, it's a hero's journey.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned this last time I was on the show. We started this season with Luke thinking he's invulnerable and invincible, and this whole season is just him getting smacked down for having thought that. But this is just another vulnerability he has. Like, great, your skin's bulletproof, but you can still drown.
Exactly. You can get internally hurt. His lungs can fill up with water.
His shoulder can get dislocated.
The lethal weapon move doesn't work. We had to get that in before our night nurse left too.
Yeah.
But talking about shoulders, yeah, Misty not using her shoulder, but her arm, and she is back, baby. She is using it to her advantage in the garage.
Oh, I love that fight. Luke's going, well, I don't need a sidekick. And she's just giving him that look. And when they get in there, and yeah, he's doing his thing, but man, she breaks a guy's nose and one guy's running, and then she just runs and jumps on him and gets on him. And it's just like, yes, Misty. And I like that it wasn't the arm and then she could fight. I really like that moment when she had with Colleen and that bar fight, because that makes this scene even better, because it's like, yes, it's not just her getting the arm that's giving her mojo back. She's gotten her mojo back before that. And this is just a continuation of her getting her mojo back.
It was an awesome fight. I'm glad they brought the whole sidekick thing up first, because they're definitely not sidekicks. So they come out and say it. We're not doing sidekicks. Luke Cage didn't have a sidekick, and Misty is by no means a sidekick. It's pretty cool. She also gets the mojo back. This is jumping ahead, but in the second episode, she is able to envision the crime scene while she's interrogating Shades in the interrogation room. So she is back 100%, baby.
I love the way that was shot.
With they were actually on the scene with shades in the table. And if you couldn't tell, I watched it because this is the second time through it for me, so I knew what was going on. But I was watching her hair, and her hair was getting blown around like there was wind, and there was no wind on his clothes, in his hair, anything. So it looked like he was in the interrogation room, but when they shot it, he was right there on set.
I also like the way that Misty and Luke's relationship is changing because of his new gig. So he has mostly been working with her, and they've been working together on things up till this point. But now she's the acting police chief for that little unit, and he's got his own clients. So he's not necessarily looking out for what's the best thing for Misty anymore. What's, the truest defense of the law. Now he's worrying about what's best for his client, even if it's a client he doesn't particularly like.
And ultimately, he wants what's best for Harlem. So in order to get there, he's got to go through this awkward stage, I would say, with Mariah Stokes. Mariah Stokes. Love it every time he says that. Well, you brought up the precinct and Captain Rittenhauer. I had a lot of respect for Captain Rittenhauer as this was starting because he was being pragmatic about Luke Cage, about Misty and everything. And then you start to see the cracks in the armor as the season goes on. And you know that he has a personal relationship with Mariah based on their childhood together and possibly a child together.
I don't think it's his child, but I'll get to that.
That's fine. It is insinuated for the viewer at this point to try to figure out. So it's possible for the viewer that that's true. And then he has a CI, confidential informant, off the books. Now, what captain keeps a CI off the books?
Every captain that wants to get murdered, that's who.
Right.
Get murdered and then have no evidence of the investigation you've been running for months.
What did Misty say? He was a house cat that shouldn't have been left outside? That was tough. That was tough watching that. But Shades, oh my gosh. So we have been following over the past 2 episodes last week, this transformation between Shades and Chi of figuring out who knew what and when. And there's a little bit of Mariah and Captain Rittenhauer getting information back and everything. Another reason Captain Rittenhauer kind of murdered himself because he let it out that he had a CI through his talking with Mariah. But it comes down to the parking lot scene with Chi and with Shades and Captain Rittenhauer, and Shades he handles it.
Does he?
He kind of makes a mess.
Yes. I mean, at first, when Darius shoots Rittenhauer in the chest and it's point blank, and Shades goes over and he shoots Darius once at an angle that's plausible. So right up in there, right till then, the story could have held. But then he walks over to Darius and then shoots him from a range and an angle that Rittenhauer definitely could not have done. And it goes to show how Shades blinded by love and how that has shaped him and made him see himself in the situation.
That was cold. You murder your own best friend, possibly lover, as we were talking about last time.
I think it's made pretty clear that they were lovers when they were in prison.
I'm a little dense. You missed last episode. I didn't see it the first time. My first time I watched through the whole thing. This time I did, though, before we podcasted. And it was a revelation to me. So, you always pick up stuff the second, third time through.
Okay.
This was kind of big, though.
Yeah.
Especially since I knew he murdered Chi later, or killed him. Murder, whatever. It's the same thing right here. So I knew this was coming up. I knew that Michelle didn't know it was coming up, and it just made the barbershop scene last time so much more important because you know what happens here. Anyway, Shades goes, and he is definitely out for number 1, especially after he gets left without Ben Donovan. We'll talk about that in a second. Attorney Ben Donovan. in the interrogation room. Eventually he's let to leave. He goes back to Mariah, but he is not letting Mariah get off with everything. He actually holds something over her.
He's got that gun.
Right. How did he get it though?
Well, he had to have gone back to the brownstone.
Or did Bushmaster give it to him?
No.
Or did
No.
he pickpocket it off of Mariah when they were hugging?
I don't think Mariah had it when she was rescued.
Because she was still looking for it.
Yes, because when she came, she was looking for it. So I think Shades got there first, found it,
Mhm.
left, waited for her to come, and then came and they had that exchange.
Every scene, I mean, Michelle, you mentioned it in the notes here. She is unraveled. She is continuing on her maniacal progression, just like her cousin did, right? But it's impossible to hate her, right?
Yeah, right now, there are characters that on paper you should just despise. And again, like right now, I don't know, we're not going to talk about what happens in next episodes and stuff. So maybe something happens. But as of this, these 2 episodes, I should despise Mariah. But Alfre Woodard, her performance just makes you see the nuances, makes you kind of like, well, maybe she's not all that bad. Maybe she could be redeemed a little bit. And again, and also kudos to Theo Rossi, who plays Shades, Hernan. Alfre Woodard is a powerhouse of an actor. And for him to hold his own against her and to make it the Shades Mariah relationship, like this give and take and how he's manipulating her, their scenes, that's just 2 great actors, and being able to hold his own with her, that's amazing.
I'll tell you this. If I'm a gangster and if I'm dealing with other gangsters and I see a gangster take out a letter opener and walk around the room, I'm going to be moving myself away from that gangster.
You can't move away. She's the boss. You have to stay where you are.
Oh, I know. That's the conundrum, right? Because you can't show weakness. She's the boss.
Because then, what if you sit on your hand? She's going to be like, put your hand on that table.
Or maybe she'll just do it through your eye or
yeah,
forehead.
What are you going to do?
Oh, it's just nothing good is going to come from that. And they're all just standing there like nothing's going to happen. She's yelling and she's got a letter opener and she's talking about family. I would worry about my family jewels right then.
True.
This season wouldn't be the same without Mariah. And you get a little bit more into the history. This has been alluded to along the way. Bushmaster has done a great job of storytelling and telling the story of how the club came to be, who was who, their fathers and who sold who out. Those are powerful scenes because you're getting more and more backstory as to why Bushmaster really hates Mariah Stokes to the point of he's got everything, yet he's putting everything at risk just to make sure that she gets hurt how he wants to hurt her and take her soul.
Vengeance is never enough.
I mean, his uncle's right. You've got everything. You're getting a suit. You've got all this power. You've got the club. And he says Gwen would be proud of what he has, but not how he got it. And it's interesting. The uncle is just like, you've got enough. You have it and you're going too far. And I'm going to walk away right now because what you're doing to yourself is eating at your soul. And I just can't see you self-destruct like this.
He's a very powerful figure, both literally and figuratively, because he walks into the brownstone and Mariah, I was going to say Alfred, Mariah shoots him several times and doesn't even phase him because he's got the nightshade coursing through his veins and everything. And when he is in the club office, Harlem's Paradise office, and he hears Luke Cage's name as the reason why Mariah is still alive, he literally rips the chair in half. Of course, it's all cinematic, right? But when you're watching it, you go like, wow, he's so powerful. He just rips. It's like the Captain America ripping the log scene apart, except for with a very well-built chair, probably from like the 1950s. And or maybe it was newer. I don't know. But anyway, it's very powerful. You go to work tomorrow and you try ripping up your chair, or like I got my podcast chair here. You know, if you got something like this, you try ripping that up with your bare hands.
No, because I might have to like tape it back together and use it for a while.
Right.
I just got this chair this summer. I'm not ripping this apart.
Okay, fair. But that's my point, is that's how hard it is to do, both emotionally, apparently, and figuratively. He's a very powerful figure, and I think they've set him up to be a more than adequate bad guy for this season.
Yeah.
Also, he gets all the money, and I alluded to this before, but we find out that Ben Donovan just goes where the money is, as any good lawyer does, right?
Yeah, it's all about those billable hours.
I don't know, unless I'm told not to, and that's probably what happened. He was told no longer to represent them. But if I'm a lawyer, I would probably at least stick it out until my client was out of the interrogation room if there was no reason.
Also, when you've been part of the criminal enterprise, maybe don't leave them hanging in a position to cut a deal and roll over on you.
And I didn't realize this, but Mabel put him through law school.
Mama Babel.
So it's not just a client, loyal client breaking, but it's, you're supposed to be part of the family. It's supposed to be more than money. But for Donovan, it's like, nope.
Again, even if he's just going to cover his own ass, like, they've got dirt on you too, dude.
Yeah, so it's just a stereotypical lawyer, right? And it comes across that way. And I think the character is entertaining to watch. Another family member, though, is not so entertaining to watch anymore because, well, his head's floating in a fish tank. That would be Piranha. And Piranha... Okay, so you're in Piranha's position, right? You've got Bushmaster trying to get you to hand over the keys to massive amounts of wealth. You think you're still going to be alive afterwards? So if the only thing keeping you alive is the passwords, why give the passwords up?
Because they're going to torture him otherwise, and he's a wimp.
Die slow or die quick?
I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he kept mentioning Luke Cage. Luke Cage is going to find me. You can't kill Luke Cage. And Bushmaster, when you keep saying things that he doesn't like, when you keep calling Mariah Dillard and not Stokes, or you don't say things that he wants to hear,
heads start popping.
Yeah.
Well, at least we didn't have to see it, but it definitely happened. And Bushmaster likes beheading people. This is at least the fourth, if not the fifth beheading, right?
Well, I think there were 3 heads on pikes at Mariah's community center.
Oh, Nigel. So it is 5.
Yeah. For those keeping track at home.
Yeah.
I should have started a
head count.
For this season.
For a very slow drinking game.
Well, that would be the type that us AARPers like me would have to do. Tilda had this very powerful emotional scene with her mom in the shop at the end, right before there was a big fight and everything got shot up. But Mariah is trying to worm her way back into Tilda's life. And there honestly is family stuff going on there that you find out that Tilda was given away by Mama Mabel, but She was always loved, that sort of thing. And Tilda's just crying. I think she knows that she's just being manipulated and set up, but she still wants that connection with her biological mom. It's just so touching to watch. Heartstring pulling.
So, my thoughts then on Tilda's father. I think it's Mariah's uncle, because we know he abused Mariah when she was younger, and that would have been around the time that she would have conceived Tilda. So that's what I think. And Mama Mabel sent her away so that no one would know about the family shame.
It's hard to argue with him. Maybe Rittenauer fell back because he knew of the abuse at the time.
Yeah.
And Mariah blamed him from pulling back and thus opening the door more for Uncle Pete. I don't know. It's plausible. I don't know for sure, but there is some possibilities here, some stronger than others. So at the end of everything, and we're not necessarily done talking about everything, but at the end of the episodes, they're kind of stuck. So you got the Stokes family, you've got the Luke Cage, Misty, and the cops, and they're all standing outside on the street going, what do we do? So what do you do in that case?
Call your rich friend.
Very rich friend, right? Danny. And here is where I want to say that the Defenders universe shines, because you can, when the going gets tough, you can lean on other people. And there was post Defenders here. There's a tremendous intermix that's happening in these series, because you see Foggy show up, you see Colleen show up, you have Danny now invoked, you have the arm for Misty that is coming from Rand Corporation. So definitely a lot of crossover between Iron Fist and Luke Cage, but you also have Daredevil crossover with Foggy. We don't have any Jessica Jones specific, but you're getting a lot of crossover. And in the crossovers, even if they're just guest appearances in an episode, I think that's where this Defenders universe shine brightly. And it did. I mean, this whole season of Luke Cage is great, but I think those are shining moments of the entire universe. And
wasn't there a Trish bit in like the very first episode where they were talking about news coverage of
it
Luke
was on
Cage?
the radio, but I don't think we actually saw Trish, right?
That's still a crossover. I'm counting it.
It is.
It's all connected.
All right. So, Michelle, anything else you want to talk about before we leave the subject?
Luke and his dad.
Oh, yeah.
Luke and his father start talking about what's going on between the two. And we learn that Luke's father blamed Luke when mom got cancer. It's one of those, your mom, the mother gets sick and you just want to lash out. Your son's in jail and you just want to blame somebody. So you blame your son that's in jail for something he absolutely has no control over, which is cancer.
That was powerful, because it was from the time that these two episodes started when Luke came to the church after the river, and it took 2 episodes to get through. Again, I think these 2 episodes pair really well together, like they did last week. The 2 episodes paired really well together. Something that I want to talk about on these 2 episodes is I love the storytelling when you're going through multiple scenes simultaneously, and the multiple scenes cut between each other. So you had the scene where Bushmaster is telling about the past family and family deaths, and it's paralleling what's going on with Luke and his storytelling. Sometimes you get a third in there with a cop, and that happened a couple of times in these 2 episodes, including at the very. I really enjoy that type of storytelling because it intertwines everything so well, and sometimes the cuts are just perfect. Like the character says something, and then another character responds in another scene, and it just all makes sense. So my hat is off again to the production team. Very well done when you do that right. Haley, you got anything that you want to say about these 2 episodes or the series in general, since you haven't been with us the entire time?
The other female detective, whose name I don't know,
Nandi.
Yeah, there you go. Her being the one to say, we had a betting pool on how long before you came back. They all said this. I said 2 days. I liked that very much. I like the switch from them having an antagonizing relationship to them working together. I just enjoy it.
It's a very fun relationship to watch. Very entertaining. This whole series has been entertaining. I've enjoyed it. I don't necessarily think that these are two of my favorite episodes. I mean, he had a lot of action. There's a lot of fights. You had the Jamaican taxi garage fight. You had the escape from the precinct, which was short-lived, but was very impactful, especially when Luke basically kicked a car, spun it around. You had the church fight when Luke was saving his dad, and then you had the fight at Tilda's shop with a lot of gunplay. So a lot of various different things between guns and physical fights in these really tend to move it along, especially when you do have all those slow, dialogue-intensive, really intentional statement scenes that could drag if you watch 2 hours of that back to back, but then you have this great action in there, and I think it worked well.
Oh, it does.
All right, anything else before we move on? Michelle, last words?
Again, these 2 episodes, really good to watch back to back. Yeah, there were a lot of talky scenes, but they were so well acted, and the cutting. I think my favorite was the baptismal at the end, because it's, Luke's father is performing, and then he's reading from Corinthians, and it's cut with Bushmaster doing his nightshade ritual thing, and I think that's probably that's my favorite, like, cut back and forth.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Haley, I know you've watched a lot of the season in a binge mode, so how do you think of the season so far?
I like getting more history, especially on our villain. I think a well-built villain is what makes a good hero movie or TV show. So I like that we're getting more about Mariah, we're getting more about Bushmaster, we're getting more about the history of Harlem within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's just all very interesting.
I've seen everything. I know what comes next. I can't wait for you guys to see it, because you're going to have a lot to say about that. So we'll next week get on to the next couple of episodes here. It'll be episode 9 for Pete's sake, and episode 10, the main ingredient. And I think today what we're going to do is we're going to phone a friend, and we're going to get on out of here. A very rich friend. Thank you, everybody, for downloading, listening, and then getting back to us, whether it's on our Discord server or Twitter or emailing us. Really appreciate it. Matter of fact, I've gotten a lot of phone messages as well. Some hang-ups. I'm thinking it's political season, so it might be what the hang-ups are, but some of the phone messages have been fun. So thank you very much for all of that. We really appreciate it, especially Cheo. If you're still listening, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you to everybody that is listening, especially any creators within the MCU or the MTVU that might be listening. We appreciate all of our listeners equally. But if you're a creator of the show and you want to share some inside info with us, we would also love to hear that.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate all the interaction. I know Lauren really loves it when the Twitter interaction happens. And, again, thank you very much for sticking with us post Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We appreciate it.
We do. So until next time, I'm producer of the show, SP.
I'm Agent Haley.
I'm Agent Michelle.
See everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.
Wash your hands, wear a mask.
Believe in science.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to GonnaGeek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com, where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, or GonnaGeek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D is copyright 2013 through 2020.